Welcome to Season 3, Episode 12 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak life, encouragement, and truth into the minds and hearts of educators and get you energized for the week ahead. Today, I'm going to share some thoughts on why right now, midway through the school year, is actually the perfect time to change up classroom routines and try something new so you can save time and stress later. Visit truthforteachers.com to get the transcript, links to recommended resources, and to share your thoughts on the show. One of the big principles that we're always coming back to in the Hour Teacher Workweek Club is that implementing small changes right away is more effective than hoping you'll feel like implementing big changes later on. We as human beings, it's just our nature to make the mistake of assuming that our future selves will somehow be less stressed and less busy and more disciplined and productive, and therefore will be able to handle making positive changes later. The problem with that logic is that those qualities of being less busy and more productive later don't just happen on their own. The summer or next school year only seem like they'll be slightly less crazy than right now because of all the unexpected interruptions and emergencies and new obligations that haven't cropped up yet. Unless we're actively taking steps now to set our future selves up for success, things really aren't going to change very much. If you're not consciously aware of that, you'll be tempted to see a great teaching idea or a more productive way of working and think, oh, I'll figure that out over the summer. I'll try it out in the fall with a new class. I don't want to confuse the kids and the parents with something different right now. And plus, I'm just too busy to think about it. I'll try something new in the fall. But here's the problem with that approach. Everything is brand new in the fall. You'll have a new group of kids and parents that you don't know yet. You'll be trying to implement a bunch of new policies that the school district put in place and adapt to the changes in curriculum, standards, testing, or assessment, all these kinds of things that just seem to crop up every year. You'll already be working an insane amount of hours in August and September just trying to keep your head above water. Why in the world would you want to add to that stress by trying out a bunch of new procedures or routines during the most stressful time of the school year? If you wait to try out all your new ideas when you're starting over with a new class, one of two things will likely happen. You'll either try to do too many things and get completely burned out 3 weeks into the school year, or you'll end up deciding that you don't have the mental bandwidth or the physical energy to try anything new, and you'll just default right back into those same old teaching practices that you know aren't working particularly well, and that you're frankly pretty bored with. Which means that the whole cycle then starts all over again, and you're looking at another school year of inefficient procedures and tired teaching strategies until hopefully you'll have the energy to try something new in the fall of 2017. Let's talk about how to break that cycle of placing all this burden and responsibility on our future selves. Let's look at how to embrace the fact that your willingness to adapt what you're doing right now has the ability to save you countless hours and immeasurable stress in the new school year. I think mid-year and late spring are actually the perfect time to experiment with new classroom procedures, routines, and teaching strategies. And here's why. First of all, at this time of year, your personal workload is lessened. But I don't think there's any time of year when teaching is easy. I do think that for most educators, there's less to do and less pressure later in the school year than at the very beginning. If you're going to set a new personal challenge for yourself, April is probably going to be a better month than September. Secondly, you don't have much to lose at this point in the year. In the fall, you're just starting to get into a groove, and you might not want to mess with something that seems to be working well so far. But let's be real, by springtime, nothing is working particularly well. You're tired and pretty much feeling over it about just every aspect of your classroom. And the kids are feeling done for the year too, which means it's extremely difficult to get them to do high quality work. So why not use this time to experiment? A third reason why I think now is a great time to make changes is because change is the antidote to spring fever. If your students are unfocused and unmotivated in class, that means they're ready for you to try something different. They want you to mix things up. They want you to surprise them and keep things interesting. They'll be better behaved and more motivated if they feel like your heart's still in this teaching thing and that you're still excited about what's happening in the classroom every day. And how do you get yourself excited? By breaking out of the same old and having a new idea or a new strategy that you're looking forward to trying out. A fourth reason why right now is a good time to try something new is because you have a rapport with your students that are already in your class, which means that introducing change is easier. Trying out new strategies in the fall is risky because you don't know how the activity is going to go, and you don't know much about your new group of students. But your kids this year, well, you know what they're going to say before they even open their mouths. It's much easier to anticipate problems and glitches in a classroom where the level of familiarity is higher. A final reason why now is a great time is because students love the idea of giving input for next year's class. Tell them, I'm thinking of trying something new with the kids in this grade level next year. I want to do the activity, though, with you guys first and see what you think of it. And then you can let me know if you think I should keep it or toss it. Don't worry that making changes to the way you run your classroom will confuse the kids or cause them to question your authority or your expertise. First, just do some brainstorming about what you'd like to change and how you'd like things to run, and then have a conversation with your class about it. Don't try to sneak in a new procedure and act like that's the way you wanted things done all along. I've tried that. The kids weren't fooled. Just level with them. Here's an example. One spring, I became completely fed up with my students constantly writing down the wrong page numbers for homework or forgetting to copy all their assignments. It had been happening occasionally throughout the school year, but it had really gotten bad once testing was done for the year and the kids were just mentally checked out. I realized that I wasn't really setting students up for success in this area, and that if I didn't try to fix the problem now, it would probably continue not only for the remainder of the year and drive me absolutely insane every day, but it would probably continue with next year's class too. So I took some time to brainstorm solutions and then sought input from the kids to get their buy-in. I told them, I've been thinking about how we manage homework. I've noticed a problem with people sometimes copying down the wrong page numbers or only writing down part of the assignments. Have any of you noticed this happening? Why do you think this might be a problem? I've been trying to think of good solutions. What are your ideas for fixing this problem? And I let the kids brainstorm a little bit. And then I used what they said as a springboard to introduce my solution and kind of adapt what I had been thinking. So I said to them, this gives me an idea. You've touched on something that I was considering over the weekend. What if I tried giving you 5 minutes instead of 3 minutes to write everything down? And you use part of that time to partner up and have a friend check over what you wrote. Would you be willing to try that for a week? Let's practice it, and then we'll have another conversation soon to talk about how it's working. We can always make changes then. You guys are pretty responsible, but I don't know if every class I teach is going to be that way. I really want your help in coming up with a good solution here that I can use with next year's class so that they don't have the same problem. I then modeled exactly what I needed students to do, and I guided the kids through it. And instead of having 5 kids miscopy their assignments each day, I started having just 1 or 2. I was so glad that I didn't wait until fall to try to figure out a better system and test it out with a group of kids that I didn't know very well yet. It turned out that 5 minutes was actually too long for students to get their assignments in order, and that resulted in some kids playing around and getting off task. It could have been disastrous, or at the very least very stressful, to discover that fact during the first week of school. But by that late point in the school year, my students and I had such a strong rapport that it was easy to get everything back on track. We discussed it as a class, and we tried shortening the time to 4 minutes. That turned out to be perfect. So not only did I have less stress and homework headaches for the remainder of that school year with that class, I was able to start the following school year with a better strategy that I'd already tested out and that I felt confident the kids could be successful with. An added bonus of experimenting with different ways of running your classroom now is that you not only avoid overwhelming yourself in the fall, but in the summertime too. Many teachers fall into the trap of making this mile-long to-do list of school stuff that they think they're going to handle in July. And before they can even blink, of course, summer's over and they barely got anything done. When you do this, when you place all this responsibility on your future self, that yourself suddenly in July is going to be this other person and get all this stuff done that you don't get during any other time of the year. When you do that to yourself, this weight of undone work hangs over you when you're supposed to be relaxing. And the guilt of not doing it makes you feel like you're behind before the school year even gets started. So be realistic with yourself. The summer is going to fly by. Always. Every year. You probably aren't going to spend as much time working ahead on school stuff as you'd like. Remember that future you is not going to be any less busy or any more disciplined or any more productive if you don't start taking steps now to make those changes happen. By experimenting with small changes now, by figuring out your new strategies, trying them out, observing what works, adapting it as needed, by doing those things now, you're going to minimize the amount of prep that you need to do over the summer. You'll be able to spend some time relaxing and enjoying your break and still be ready to hit the ground running in the fall. I'm going to leave you with a motivational quote this week that's from Carlos Castaneda. He said, "We either make ourselves miserable or we make ourselves strong. The amount of work is the same." You see, your work in the classroom is going to be challenging no matter what. The choices you make each day can either keep you in survival mode where you're just treading water, or they can be helping you get ahead and make progress. Staying stuck in practices that are inefficient and ineffective is so draining that it's really not any easier than making steps to create change. So go ahead, start making those changes now. And if you want more help with this, think about joining us in the 40-Hour Teacher Workweek Club. We're going to be accepting new members at the end of June for a July start. So you can get all sorts of help and support and tips and resources for working more productively and more efficiently so that you're not burdening your future self with all of these crazy tasks. Learn how to pace yourself, learn how to prioritize, figure out the most important things, and get them done. I really hope you'll consider joining us. Until then, have a fantastic week. You can do this, and remember, it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. Truth for Teachers is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more great podcast recommendations, go to edupodcastnetwork.com. That's edupodcastnetwork.com.